Remember the MLB lockout? Neither do we. Okay, we remember it, but the uncertainty and waiting game is over because baseball is back, baby. Welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. I'm Destiny Sanchez alongside Logan Barandez and Brendan Conroy. Tonight we will break down the best and worst signings thus far, as well as to look into what the season may hold. All right, gentlemen, since the lockout has happened, a lot of movement has been going on. Talk to me about some good signings that have gone on so far.
Well, I know we talked about one the other day, but Logan will get to that later. He'll talk about that one. One that I want to look at is these two guys, Castellanos and Schwarber. Castellanos coming from the Reds, Schwarber coming from the Red Sox. He was on the Nationals a little bit last year, but then ended the season on the Red Sox. If you remember Schwarber, he's a left-handed batting threat. He was on every single highlight on ESPN, SportsCenter. I don't think I went a single day on Instagram, Twitter, everything, without seeing a Schwarber highlight, knocking it over the fence, getting a double, whatever it was, he was just producing and his bat was working. He carried that over to the Red Sox. The Red Sox had a great offense last season towards the end of the season where they were getting consistent hits, so he was adding to that offense. He was even batting up in the lineup at one point, so he is going to be coming to the Phillies. He's going to be a great threat for them as well. He's going to go to the outfield, but what's going to round off that outfield? Bryce Harper and Nick Castellanos. You know Castellanos, him and Jesse Winker were kind of a dual threat last season on the Reds. I got to see them play in person, and let me tell you, they are no joke. He gets up, I remember it was a late game, late in the 8th inning, and he hit a home run and tied up the game. So he's no joke. He always comes through. With Bryce Harper also in right field, this is going to be an insane outfield. 3 great fielders and great bats. Castellanos batted .309 last season with 34 home runs, over 30 home runs, and over 300 of an average. That is phenomenal numbers. And adding that to the reigning MVP on Philadelphia, they were fine last season. Obviously, they came in second to the Braves in the division, but the Braves won the World Series. So what are you really going to do? At least the team that beat them went all the way. The Phillies this year, after only falling 6.5 games behind last season, they're in a pretty good spot now that they have a all-star, all 3 outfield now for those guys.
Yeah, Brendan, you talk about the MVP from this year. How about the MVP from the year before in Freddy Freeman going Hollywood, going to the LA Dodgers? And this is a move that really surprised a lot of people as Freddy Freeman has been with the Atlanta Braves his entire career, won a World Series this past year in the MVP in 2020. He's been one of the best players for the Atlanta Braves in recent memory, and now going to be signing with the LA Dodgers on a really big deal, a 6-year contract for the 32-year-old. And the fact that the Dodgers can do this, they already have an all-star first baseman in Max Muncy, and they're able to just simply say, hey, just slide over to second base and let Freddy Freeman take over. The fact that they can do that is going to be huge for their lineup, which is now looking like one of the best in baseball for one of the best and most well-rounded teams in all of baseball. Freddy Freeman consistently hitting around the 300 mark throughout his entire career. Definitely capable of doing that with guys like Max Muncy, like Trey Turner, like Mookie Betts, all around him in that lineup. Should be really fun to watch. And Freddy Freeman definitely in a spot where he can compete for multiple world championships throughout the rest of his career.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. Freddie Freeman, he's just an all-American baseball player in my eyes. Another signing that I thought was interesting, Brendan, you might disagree with me, but Carlos Correa to the Twins. I was surprised he went to the Twins, but I knew he was going to sign an option where he was going to be able to opt out. It's a 3-year deal, but I think that the Twins will kind of use him almost like a prospect player, see how it goes. If it's not going well, do a midseason trade and then bring in some younger prospects maybe. But I don't know, I just thought it was an interesting trade. So moving over to not so good trades, what were some signings that you didn't think were the greatest?
In an absolute shocker, the Colorado Rockies front office has proven once again just how not bright really they are. I mean, they traded away Nolan Arenado and traded away $50 million in the process for one of the best third basemen in all of baseball, and just a year later go into free agency and for no reason at all sign Chris Bryant to a massive contract. And Chris Bryant did make an all-star appearance this past year, but the Rockies, they haven't gotten much better, shockingly, since this Nolan Arenado trade, as they finished as one of the worst teams in all of baseball, and their all-star shortstop in Trevor Story just left to go to the Boston Red Sox as well in free agency. So you have Chris Bryant, which is great, in a lineup with nothing around it, and the Rockies made no other moves in free agency to really build around it, and you're still dealing with one of the worst rotations, one of the worst pitching staffs in all of baseball, playing in the Mile High, which has never been great for any pitcher that has ever played in a Rockies uniform. So while Chris Bryant did get his money, he already has his World Series, he might not really see competitive baseball in Colorado for quite some time, probably for most of that contract.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that the Correa signing was awful or the worst one we've ever seen, but I've wanted to talk about this. See, my thoughts with Correa is not that it's all about the money, but when he gets offered $105.3 million for only 3 years to be an infielder, how do you say no to that? There's really not a chance or an opportunity to say no thank you. Coming off of the Astros, that's the most surprising part. He played on a team with a phenomenal supporting staff. He had Altuve, Verlander returning, and also Bregman. Sure, Springer was gone, went to the Blue Jays, but he still had 3 All-Stars and one of the best pitchers we've seen probably in this generation with Verlander. To just now to go to the Twins in Minnesota. They finished in last place in their division last season, 20 games behind. The Astros, did they do that? No, they went to the playoffs and beyond. They've won the World Series back in a few years back, and why would you want to leave a team like that produces and that is consistently good? The Twins, by any means, are not a horrible team, but they are definitely not a great team. They've had a little bounce back and this back and forth in the past. With Sanchez and Urshela now being picked up by them, that's not a great supporting cast in my opinion. I feel like you just went from 3 great guys to now, maybe 2 decent-ish guys, but nobody that's really going to blow you away. If the Twins want any hope of coming back and even getting 3rd place or 2nd place in the division, it's not going to happen anytime soon. So in these next 3 years, if Correa is looking for a World Series, he's not going to get one. I could be wrong, but I am not very confident in this Twins organization that they're going to go anywhere far in the playoffs or even get a wild card spot this season. Correa, it just seems like he wanted the money. He'll have a good 3 years. Who knows where he'll go from there. But if he wanted to produce championships and win, I would have stayed with Houston personally.
Yeah, I hear you on the money game there. He is the highest, at least for this season, the highest paid infielder. But we'll have to just see how he does over in the Twins. And kind of transitioning to the league as a whole, what are some teams in the AL and the NL that you think are going to stand out this year?
Now, my AL team might get a little bit iffy with some people's thoughts. The NL, we'll get to that after, but the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, I feel like this could be their season. They might have a good bounce-back season from the ones they've had in the past. In their division, they've not always been too successful, but let's think about it this way. They have a two-way player in Shohei Ohtani, who was the MVP last season, and who else do they have? The LeBron James of baseball, Mike Trout. We haven't seen much production from Mike Trout in the past, in these recent years, but he's still an MVP. He has multiple MVPs in his career. If he's ready to come back out and get that bat and attack, LeBron did it in Cleveland. Why can't Mike Trout do it in Anaheim? He can carry the team by himself, but not only by himself, now with another threat. Not just a bat, not just a pitcher, but a guy who does both and can play every single game. It's not like he's going to pitch and then not be able to hit. They'll put him in at the DH spot if they need to, and if he's not at the DH spot, they choose to put him in as a hitter. They don't go with the DH. So this team right off the bat already has a pitching threat and 2 big bats in their lineup and something to prove. Trout doesn't have a World Series, but I'm pretty sure he wants one, as anybody would. So with that coming into the season, they have a lot to prove. They have a lot to fight for. Hopefully they can make some production happen. Looking over to the NL, though, with the Mets are looking great so far. Looking in the infield with Lindor, sure, that's great and fine. He played well last season. He's going to come back, and I have confidence he'll come back even better this season, now that he's got a little adjusted to the playing field, now that he has been in the clubhouse for a little while now. But they also added Max Scherzer. Coming from the Dodgers, like you said, a great team. Anybody on the Dodgers is a great player. That's not arguable. But now putting him on the Mets with Jacob deGrom, one of the best pitchers, a pitcher who doesn't even give up hits in several innings in a row, nonetheless runs. So having a pitching staff of that caliber, being in a division with the Phillies and the Braves, it's going to be a little tough. There will be, some discrepancy there, but they will be able to produce if their pitching can be on a tee. Obviously, the Mets, like I said, they're going to need to fight a little bit harder with those 2 teams being in the division. But I feel like they have, that staff in the pitching, but also the hitting right there. They can make something happen this season. I have some confidence.
As much as I love the duo of deGrom and Scherzer, you really can't discredit the duo of Walker Buehler and Clayton Kershaw for the LA Dodgers in the NL. And we already talked about how great their lineup was, but all around, really for this past decade, the Dodgers have been the team to beat in the National League. And until they're defeated in the playoffs, there's really no telling otherwise. I mean, the Dodgers lineup right now, Mookie Betts, Cody Bellinger, who was an MVP in the past as well. They just added MVP Freddy Freeman. There's stars all across this lineup. And even in that rotation, outside of the 2 guys I already mentioned, some great young names, Julio Urias, even David Price as well, who's been a great pitcher in his entire career. That entire Dodgers roster is star-studded all across the board. Just a consistent playoff contender, and right now, And they managed to win a stacked NL West every single year as well. They couldn't do it last year against San Francisco, but they look primed to do it this year. And for the AL, I'm going to talk about another non-playoff team. You talked about the Angels, but I'm going to talk about another talented offense in the Toronto Blue Jays. And you talk about the MVP in Shohei Ohtani. The guy who finished second is on this Blue Jays team in Vlad Guerrero Jr., and he put up one of the greatest seasons in recent memory. And while they did lose Marcus Semien, who had a great season at second base, they made a huge trade in the infield to get a guy like Matt Chapman from the Oakland A's, who is coming off a down year with the bat, but has a great glove at third base and hits for great power, which kind of fits right in with the rest of this Blue Jays lineup. And they made some great moves in the rotation as well, as they were able to kind of add on to a rotation that's definitely had some names in the past, getting guys like Robbie Ray, getting guys like Yusei Kikuchi to kind of fill out that rotation, which is kind of a weak point in the past for them. So the Blue Jays, especially in an AL, which already sees the Astros kind of losing Carlos Correa, the Yankees lost a few pieces as well. There's kind of an opening now for Toronto, who just missed the playoffs a year ago, to take that next step and make a push to that World Series.
Yeah, we got about 2 weeks until that opening day. I'm really excited to see all those teams that you mentioned. A lot of movement that will really impact all of these teams' games. And also the new rules that are being implemented, a lot of new things for this season. I'm really excited for opening day. That's all we have for this edition of Penn State Sports Night. Stay tuned for more MLB content. For Logan Barandez and Brendan Conroy, I'm Destiny Sanchez. Have a great night.
Hey everybody, thank you for tuning into this edition of Penn State Sports Night. We hope you liked that segment.
And we're sure there's other Penn State Sports Night segments that you are going to love as well. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content.
And check us out on social media for updates and behind-the-scenes clips and pics. Follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action.
For all of us here at the Belisari Media Center, we are
Penn State Sports Night.